it's rolling.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
You asked for it.
That's true.
I'm not saying anything different I didn't say at the party. It's not like we're strangers.
No, we're certainly not.
You know I'm a pervert. Actually, I'm kinky. Kinky uses chicken feathers. Perverts use the whole chicken.
TMI, TMI.
It even says guest director.
Go for it.
It says Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Volpe Bazzo Report. I'm your co-host Dominic Volpe. With me is Andy Bazzo. Another episode. I missed our New Year's and Christmas.
Because you were busy with Mai Tais.
Yeah, with Mai Tais in Florida.
But
the
reality is that I was just thinking back. You and I have been on the air in one form or the other over 10 years now. Since 2007, in one form or the other, you and I have been on the air.
Wow.
And the nation has never been so divided.
And I think we've been doing this over 5 years.
And look how divided this nation is because
at least since the Civil War.
And of course, our co-host also, Brian Fumagalli, our resident serious man.
Yes,
I realize because this is a special show, we have a guest that is familiar to the viewers of Volpe Bazzo, Jeffrey Deskovic of the Deskovic Foundation.
Yes. Jeffrey, welcome aboard again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
But we want to get a couple things out of the way. First of all, our salute to our number one fan, Marianne McCara.
All right.
I hope everything is well in this new year. Of course, to Christine Scotty, Brian's better half, mother of their child, who puts our shows on YouTube, which you can always find on YouTube. As the last show closed, we had the Mayor Pixel, Andrew Rainey, and you had heard that we had lost the studio with the new contract. What it means for the taping of the show, we are totally unfamiliar. But as long as we can, we will be bringing you new episodes of Volpe Bazzo until we can. And that's all we can tell you. But the fact is that the studio will be closing eventually. And that's all the shows. It doesn't just affect us. It affects Sandy Galiff. What's his name from Yorktown?
Any of the political access shows.
Any of the shows that we're on. And it is a shame. Mm-hmm. But it is what it is. And
it's okay. There's a new leaf. There's a possibility that there could be a lot of this is going to be brought over.
Being that you have all the properties in Lower Peekskill, that's your monopoly. Is there a building we can set up a studio in?
Sure, why not? I mean, listen, anything's possible.
Now, there's a reason why Jeff is here, besides being a friend of ours, and he was talking about a new book that's out now. Jeff, start with what does the Jeff Deskovic Foundation from Freedom do?
The Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice exonerates wrongfully convicted people, and we pursue policy changes designed to prevent wrongful conviction.
Okay, and have you been successful?
Yeah, we have. So we freed 7 people in 5.5 years.
That turned out they were actually innocent.
It turned out they were actually innocent, yes. And then also we got...
Is it through DNA?
No, actually, they were not through DNA. They were non-DNA cases. Those 2 can be won as well. And then also, we had a major policy success this past May. We got myself, and there's a broader coalition called It Can Happen to You. And my foundation is part of that coalition. I'm an advisory board member of it. And we went from idea to legislation. It took us 6 long years, but we got the Governor Cuomo to sign into law the country's first commission on prosecutorial conduct, so an independent oversight.
Misconduct, you mean?
Well, it investigates
same.
allegations of misconduct, but the name of the commission itself is for political
I
purposes.
remember reading, but you were involved in that? Because I
Yes.
responded, because I said, how come the prosecutors can do this crap, shit on people's lives, and then get away with it? Now that
Yes, I was very, now the commission was passed, and when it gets formed, they will investigate allegations of misconduct.
So
I can think of a few already.
So does it turn the table that if they think like the assistant district attorney is doing something that's either illegal or unwarranted, is it that you're allowed to go after them in a sense?
Yes, you can file.
So in other words,
yes.
so it's not like they can just say, "Well, I did the best I could with the information, and it's done as far as."
For the longest time,
And so
prosecutors
they're-
were immune from lawsuits.
right. So this
Right, and
You
is,
it's-
could sue
well,
the
the-
state, but you couldn't sue the prosecutor.
Right. Well, this doesn't affect the immunity, but it does give you an independent place to go to with a complaint that's independent. Number one, which wasn't. They didn't have. There's nothing independent. They have subpoena power, and the third thing is. Complaints can be filed anonymously, which is big because a lot of defense lawyers were not willing to file complaints because they had a concern for retaliation.
Correct.
Plus, they know that nothing was going to happen anyway. So the commission does away with that. In fact, it can even investigate without a complaint being filed. They can do it sua sponte.
I don't know what that means.
That means on its own hook.
You sound like a lawyer.
Oh well, I'm about to be. So,
Really?
You have been, since you've been on the show last, you've been going to law school.
I have. I've been going to Pace Law School, and I am one semester away from graduating.
oh,
Nice.
That's a fellow alumni.
What kind of law do you want? Do you want criminal law?
Absolutely, yeah. I just specifically I want to exonerate more people through my foundation, but just I want to be the attorney of record in some of the cases, and of course I want to do a little bit of the civil rights work afterwards, help people that have been wrongfully convicted to get compensation.
You know,
Real quick, how, and I don't getting too into the weeds here, 'cause we have the general idea, but how do you go about, is there a lot of research? How do you find someone, like one of the, I think 7 people or whatever you said?
Yes.
How do you find people that you
They
think?
find they find me.
So they contact you,
They
and then you
contact
do
me.
research into their
Into the
their
case.
and
Yeah,
see
correct.
if you feel it's worth
Yes,
examining
correct.
further.
Exactly right.
Okay.
I
Yes.
think we asked that last time, and you
Are
said
you working
there were
on
like
any more?
130 people that tried to contact you. It's like it became overwhelming at one point.
Yes, yeah. Well, the number's only gotten bigger, but yeah, the answer is yes. There's 10 cases in the pipeline, and I think
now.
that right now, and I think that one of them's on the verge of coming out. Andrew Krivak from Putnam County, which also involved Dan Stevens, one of the main villains in my case.
right.
So yes.
And you had just mentioned, because the last time you were here was about a year and a half ago.
About that,
and
yes.
you had one young fellow who had just been exonerated.
Yeah,
But we
William
heard-
Lopez.
we heard, I think Andy had called me or something, that he had passed
Because you
away.
called me.
Right,
Right?
correct. Yeah, because he passed after a year and a half.
But he was a free man.
But he died a free man. His
Right.
innocence was known. He had his name.
He got his name back.
Now,
He
was
got his name back.
Now, was he able to get any sort of restitution from the state, or was the family, you know what
The
I mean?
the family. He passed before the lawsuit finished, so his wife got it. So the lawsuit continued in the name of his estate, and his wife and his daughter benefited
But unfortunately,
financially.
he
But
passed
he
away.
himself passed away.
Too bad.
But the important thing is, I guess he got his name back.
Yeah,
and
no.
And he
No.
did have a year and a half of freedom.
Yeah.
And he didn't
Right.
die in prison. No one wants to die in prison, especially not if you're there wrongfully.
wrong.
Now,
Wrongfully.
2 things have happened that I haven't asked you about. Number one, we now have a new Attorney General, Loretta James, who apparently thinks her number one job is going
knew
after
this
the
was coming.
president. Don't you think she should be more concentrating on things going on in New York?
Absolutely, sure, of course. So the Attorney General's office, when the prior occupant had the office, let's say, I mean, he claimed that he was going to have like a conviction review within his office to intervene when ongoing wrongful conviction cases were happening. And of course, he never intervened in anything. So I'm hoping that this new Attorney General can do something different.
Are you
in
gonna
other
be
words,
able
he
to
gave you a lot of lip service.
He gave a lot of lip service, but I mean, she should be focused on correcting wrongful convictions and other injustices in New York, and less on Washington, D.C.
That's how I didn't want to get political. I'm just saying that there are things in New York
Oh, sure.
that she should be concentrating on dealing with this.
Yes.
Are you going to be able to be in contact with her?
I haven't been in touch with her office yet. I mean, I'll certainly going to make the outreaches, but that was the other thing, is that, I knew Schneiderman when he was a senator. I had his cell phone. I used to make visits with him, and then once he became AG, I suddenly had no more access to him.
It's amazing, isn't it? Second time.
Disappointing.
Do you think they're going to, is there right now because you just said you passed the law?
Yes.
That all right, so is there a wing of the Attorney General for New York State? Is there a wing or I should say a department that will handle review of these cases, or do you think that's where it's going to go forward? Is there one now?
Well, they have window dressing of one.
Yeah.
There was window dressing in
But
place.
it
They had
really-
staff, but they
yeah.
never did anything. Whether
Right.
she's going to do anything or not, remains to be seen.
Do you think that's the next avenue you approach, is to actually see if you can get funding for such a department?
Well, she had the department and the funding already exists. That's different from the commission. So we're talking about there within the AG's office, they would have the ability to intervene on individual cases as far as trying to correct ongoing wrongful conviction cases. Now, the commission, in contrast to that, would be you could file a complaint if there's misconduct that happened. Not necessarily a wrongful conviction.
Right.
And they're not going to overturn a case either.
Right.
They're going to determine whether a prosecutor engaged in misconduct
But
or
it
not.
would help if they
And-
found a wrongful conviction involved because something
course.
screwed up.
Right.
Of
Something
course.
screwed up.
Yeah.
Yes.
If it looks like a duck and smells like a duck.
You know,
it's a duck.
it may have
That's
been an innocent screw up there,
Right.
especially things that only rely on identification and all that. People, it's not the most
But
reliable.
we're talking about withholding exculpatory material.
Like your case.
Yes, exactly. We're
Right,
talking
your
about
case
not
that-
threatening witnesses, not correcting perjured testimony, improper closing arguments, opening
Do
statements.
you ever see the comparison to you when what you went through? I don't even know if it went to that detail, because if I'm not mistaken, I thought you said when you were here that time that there were 5 different entities that actually were involved with your case.
Yes.
'Cause it was
So it was City of Peekskill, then it was Putnam County, was their polygraph, was Westchester County Medical Examiner, and then it was Westchester Legal Aid. So those four entities.
right.
Correct.
So do you see that? Does it mimic when you see these other cases where it happens the same way? Is it?
Yeah, it mimics in the sense that it's usually more than one party involved.
It's never just one.
It's usually not just one.
So then when you just said it, before I ask you the second question about the second change that's happened, when you read about this Detective Scarpella,
Yes.
and you read all this, does it just make you want to throw something against the wall and
Yes.
scream because you know
Yes.
what their victims
Yes.
are going through?
Yes, it does.
I mean, seriously, you had to read
It
that
does.
with anger and say, and Hines gets to walk away with his pension.
Yeah, that really bothered. And at one time they were investigating Hines, and then suddenly there was no more talk about that, and he got away scot-free.
Because probably
Because it was the wink.
usually
and
what
go
happens
out
is
into
the
Hines
sunset.
and
If you go
Scarcella
into
should have
the
went
sun-
to prison,
Right.
as far as I was concerned.
Yes, I'm just saying because
Yes.
this did not happen in a vacuum.
Was
Correct.
this I remember when you left here the last time, you were right at the end, or it was just about where you were getting your last. This was the last court case you had, and I think it had something to do with Putnam County.
Correct.
And you had just either won it or it was a.
I was on the verge of going to trial.
Yeah,
and so I went to trial, and
the
it's finished.
decision was supposed to be handed down.
Yes.
And I heard that you had won that case.
I did win that case.
Right. Now, were there any punitive damages from that, or?
No, he wasn't made to pay any punitives. I mean, the county that he worked for, Putnam County, had to pay.
Had to pay for
They
it.
had to
No,
pay
you
for it, but it
settled
wasn't
with
any
Peeksville
punitive.
finally, right?
I did
That
settle with
that
Peeksville.
wasn't settled the last time you were on the show.
No, that had just been settled.
Oh, you did settle.
did
so
settle
that's
that one.
No, the one in Putnam County was the one that
Correct.
still was.
Now, I have one other thing. The federal government just passed the second chance law.
Yes.
Or first chance law. What is your opinion? The first chance law gives people that are now served their time a chance to be hired. It does something about their records or...
Yeah, well, and there's that part of it, but then there's also that the process of stacking charges so that you could wind up with an absurd amount of time, 20, 30, 40 years on mandatory minimums, all from one transaction. They eliminated that for nonviolent offenders. I mean, there were a lot of people who, for drug possession, just for usage, were winding up with 20, 30, 40 years. It was just absurd. So that was, that's corrected. So actually, I wrote about some of those changes in a paper at law school prior to the legislation being introduced and ultimately
So what
passed
do you
into
think
law.
Is that
about this
because-
legislation? I mean, were you surprised this got done with a Republican Congress and
I-
a Republican president?
Yeah, I was because Senator McConnell was saying, "Oh, there's no time to bring it to the floor for a vote." which I thought was horse crap. I mean, if you got the votes, bring it up. How long
But
can
you
it
saw
take?
that a Republican president insisted on it.
A Republic, yes, President Trump
But
threw
again,
his
there is
weight.
a difference. There was a Republican president from New York. Don't forget, it wasn't a Republican president from some conservative state that maybe would have bowed to McConnell. You had a guy that was more known for being a little bit socially liberal.
Well, he was more. He was
Even though
also.
he's the most
a couple
racist
of things. He
man
was
in the
more.
world,
He was
supposedly.
more independent. But the other thing is this, right? And again, look, I work with who I can work with when I can work with them. I
Well,
give
that's
credit
the
when
idea.
credit's due.
Yes.
Not a global. So look, here's the bottom line. Okay, President Trump got behind the legislation. He threw the weight of his office behind it. President Obama did not. That's the bottom line. Those are just the facts. And for that part of it, I'm happy with President Trump because something was done.
But I have to ask, because you talk to people that have never been in jail, never been through the system. You've been through the system. Is this good legislation?
Yes, it is. Does it cover every single thing? No, absolutely
Nothing
not.
ever does,
Nothing
really.
ever does.
Right.
But look, there's people going to be coming home now that wouldn't have saw the light of day in like forever.
Right.
Now they're going to be
And
coming
they'll
home.
get a chance. And see, I like Trump's argument about employment, because there are people that are looking to hire because there's more job openings than people looking for work.
Right.
And he was talking about a couple of major companies that have found that some ex-cons do make very good workers, because whatever they were convicted of, it wasn't.
Well, not to make it political, but because we have a guy who's a communist who wants to stay with Vladimir Putin over NATO.
That has nothing to do with this. We're not talking about.
We're talking.
No,
about,
we're talking
You're
about
making
giving.
it political.
No,
we're talking to him about
no,
this.
I said the argument for why it was done.
Yeah.
Give
the argument.
people,
No. Why was the argument done? Why don't we ask him?
To give people a second chance,
To
wasn't
give-
it?
Yeah, it was to give. It was, no.
Or do you think maybe our prison system is so overtaxed and overburdened that they had to realize there had to be some way in order to get rid of nonviolent?
No, I think it was some of both. I think it
Yes,
was some of
that's
both.
maybe
And,
that
and,
makes
diff-
sense.
and different arguments appeal
Yes.
to different segments of society and politicians than others. But as long as they're all truth, I mean, look, as long as you come together, I don't care what your
No,
motivation is.
understood.
No, because I look at New York City. Their idea of lowering the crime stats is to make things not criminal anymore.
Yeah.
Fair jumping
Right,
and
right.
well, if they're not illegal anymore, then good. The crime went down.
Yeah,
But did the crime really go down?
Yeah, but
I thought this.
but Rikers Island and all the rest of them are still at maximum capacity.
What I'm saying
It's
is,
not
I
like
thought
these
this
guys are getting off the
legislation
hook
was
here.
a better way to handle it than saying, well, if you jump the fair, it's not a crime anymore.
Right.
I just
No, but because it's not decriminalizing things. What it is it's saying that we recognize that our sentencing is disproportionate. It's out of
Right.
whack,
Right.
and we're going to fix that.
Right.
We're not saying it's not criminal.
So, like for example, we're about to legalize marijuana in the United States.
Yeah.
There are still people that are serving for being busted for marijuana 20 years ago.
Right, and so I would hope that
And that's usage. I'm not talking about sale.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I would hope that New York State, and then to the extent that if it happens on the federal level, I think that if and when they do legalize it, and you're right, it seems inevitable at this point. Anybody serving time for that should get out, should be done.
This I'm familiar with, and I can't answer for the federal, but I know with New York State, part of the legislation to legalize marijuana is to expunge the records of anybody convicted of the nonviolent offender use of it in the last 25 years.
Right.
I think,
They're not gonna go back
California's
farther.
done that.
Right, but
We're doing that
expungement's
now.
one
They're
thing.
modeling it on
Yeah,
California,
yeah.
but it goes back 25, and they're going to expunge those records.
I agree with expungement, but that's just as to the record. I'm saying that anybody who is still doing time for possession of marijuana should be released from prison. It would be to me, it would be
I
absurd.
did not see that in the discussions I was reading.
It's not, but I'm saying it should be.
Then-
I'm saying that it's perverse and absurd and unjust.
Is that
to
common,
then-
by the way?
What's that?
Because, like, I know cocaine, heroin, people, just for doing them.
What
People,
the hell do you know about cocaine? Talk to me. I was in the nightclub business. Oh, you mean something? Okay, right.
I was going to say something, but I won't.
The cameras are rolling.
Yeah,
Exercise your Fifth Amendment.
Statute of
Put it this
limitations
way.
is expired.
touche.
Are there really people, any sort of significant amount of people serving 20, 30 more years for smoking pot 3 times and getting caught?
Well, I mean, I can't.
Is that really? Because
Well,
I don't believe that.
I can't-
Cocaine, I can see it, and I'm not saying I agree with it, but I can see
depends on
that.
the state and
I'm
the law
saying,
that's still
yeah.
in the books.
I'm saying I
Right.
can't.
I mean,
Well, let me get a couple words in edgewise
yeah,
here, okay? I can't quantify it for you to say, what the percentage or how much, or even to just start getting into how much time they're doing. I'm saying anybody that's doing time in prison for marijuana usage, okay, when at such time as it becomes legal recreationally, they should be released.
Grandfather.
Right.
I have no
Yes.
problem with that. Yeah.
Now-
I agree with that.
no,
okay, you agree with that.
I just think the pot thing. I hear people say it, and I'm like, maybe I'm wrong, but it's hard for me to believe that there's people who got arrested 3 times for smoking dope for pot, and that they're in prison for 30 years.
Well, but three strikes.
I
States
get-
with
I
3
get it.
strikes.
I get it.
Three
I
strikes.
said there's
I
more.
get it.
There's more to the
No,
story.
I understand that. I'm
Unless
still
you're
saying though.
unless you're a state senator and you're
But
caught
you have
on
to
the
remember.
highway on 87.
No,
yeah,
he
but
was an
wait a
assemblyman.
second. You have to remember because you were.
Now he's
born-
getting
you,
in trouble.
you were what? You weren't even born then.
No, the
30
Rockefeller
years.
laws, all 3 strikes. I get it. I'm just saying.
No, but I'm saying, but at the time the Rockefeller laws were enacted, everybody was gung ho.
I know that. I know that. Yeah.
This was a different state back then.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
were
I know.
very gung ho. So when they caught, and the knowledge of drugs was really antiquated to what we know about drugs now.
Oh, sure.
I mean, when cocaine was the big fad back in the 70s, it was looked at as a drug that was non-addictive. So that's why it was a great drug. You're not going to get addicted to. Well, what do we know now? They lied.
Yeah, right. Jeffrey, one question.
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
go back a step, though. So you brought up the word expunged is the
Yes,
word?
expunged.
Okay, but you said, so what does that mean, though?
That
In
means
other
if you
words-
have a criminal record, and
Right.
if, based on that charge, it would be removed from your record and you don't have a record anymore.
But you're saying...
I'm saying anyone that's incarcerated should simultaneously be freed.
So, but expungement doesn't mean that you're automatically free.
no.
So you could still stay in jail,
Yes.
even though you're
And have no
clear of
record.
the charge.
Yeah.
You're still going to be put in. You're
Okay,
still in
then-
jail.
Well, the
What
other
is
thing
it?
to
How's that all about?
but
Okay, then
expungement
because
normally
the-
expungement normally happens when you're on the street.
Right.
By the way, the expungement doesn't happen while
When
you're
you're in prison.
incarcerated.
But just
while
so
you're in
you
prison.
know, the Supreme Court ruled years ago that innocence is not a legal condition for release. That you could be innocent. You could be, but like in his case where he was proven his innocence, but New York State didn't have to release him.
And
Just
that
because he was
and
innocent.
The Supreme Court.
The Supreme
declared
Court
this.
ruled that, yes, back in the late
Yeah.
80s, early 90s.
Yeah, it was a famous one of Justice Scalia's more outrageous
Yes,
positions.
that was
His position was as long as your trial was fair,
Right.
then that's
he
good
wrote
enough.
the opinion.
Regardless of if we.
Yes.
Yeah, I
you're
bet you didn't think I
exonerated,
knew that.
you weren't
No, you surprised me right there, but you often surprise me
But
with
now,
depth of your
anyway,
knowledge
the
stuff.
reason I
Yeah, he
brought-
surprises us all the time.
But I do want to talk about now the reason why I
surprise
wanted
me
you
anymore.
on the show. Also because when
impossible.
we were on the phone and between heavy breathings, you'd mentioned that there's a new book out.
Yeah, so there's a book on mass incarceration and of course recidivism and successful reentry is kind of like the hot topic of the day now when it comes to criminal justice reform. So there is a book by one of my colleagues, Andre Ward, who's host on the show on the Count WBAI radio. Is called Right Thinking for prisoner reentry, and so he wrote a book addressing some of the things that are necessary
What's
in
the name
terms
of
of
the
prison. Yeah, it's Right Thinking for prisoner reentry.
And what's the author's name again?
Andre Ward.
Andre Ward.
So
Yes.
you endorse this book?
Yes,
You support it?
Yeah, I
Did you-
support the book. I
I-
endorse the book. I didn't write the book, but I do endorse it. I mean, basic things. I mean, we need to have. You alluded to it earlier, Anthony. We need to have employment opportunities for
Right.
people who are released. We need to have like support groups. For that.
You wanna
The
get 'em back
social-
into society.
Yeah, the
If
job
I
working
remember
and all
when
that
I was
stuff. Yes.
co-host of another show. You were our guest, and we were talking about the reentry, and that you said part of your you were just starting your foundation then.
Yes.
And you said part wasn't just getting them out, but getting them back
Right.
their life,
Yeah.
coming back into. Now, talk about reentry. How tough is that now that you look back?
It's extremely difficult from a number of perspectives. So firstly, I mean, there's the job aspect to it. There's the social stigma aspect to it. There's the psychological aspect to it. Then there's the social, which I mean, from the culture being different to trying to develop a whole new social network of people. That's all very difficult.
When you on one of those 4 keys.
Yes.
I remember hearing about it. So they say that and as far as culture goes. So you're in prison. Now, I don't know to what degree who you're surrounded with, but they say the longer
Probably criminals.
the longer you stay locked up with that
Yes.
criminal element,
Yes.
you don't get better. What you're doing
Right.
is you're learning exactly what they
Correct.
already know.
You're learning a
sense.
trade.
So what prevented you from becoming like them?
Yeah, so number one, I mean, while I understood the prison culture, I never embraced it as my own. I kept my own values. And another thing is, I mean, I minimized my associations, and then I read a lot of nonfiction books. I took advantage of the educational opportunities from GED to college before they cut the funding, and then taking vocational trades. So, and I tried to surround myself to the extent I did socialize. I tried to do that with other people who were positive, who were trying to put building blocks in place for when they return
So
back.
when you get them freed,
But
you
you can
don't just
understand-
leave them. You try to get them back into society. That's
Right.
about the other part of your foundation.
sure.
It isn't just exonerating them.
Right, no,
It's getting them.
right. So you're trying to get them reintegrated back into society.
So that's why the book. That's why the book caught your interest, I'm assuming. And it's an
Yes,
accurate
correct.
book. And it's an
And that's an
accurate
accurate book. Yeah, because it's very accurate. Yeah, it's very
Now, the
accurate.
question is this. De Blasio wants to, I think it's New York City's only done it right now, but it'd probably go to the state, where they want employers to be forbidden from asking a prospective employee if they have a criminal record. Is
Right.
that right or wrong?
That's correct, because people that are otherwise very qualified for a job are being denied opportunities. Where the vibes are the interviews are going really well, and as soon as that information goes on the table, suddenly it's don't call us, we'll call you.
Yeah.
And if we're not going to employ people when they return back to society, you're increasing the level of temptation. They're going to go back to
They're gonna go
crime,
back to
and
that.
then
Gotta get money.
Yeah,
then
See,
instead of paying
not
into
to
the
sound
tax.
like a liberal.
Yep.
No,
But
but
I believe.
It's funny.
I mean, seriously.
We've been in business for 52 years. I've had 40, 50 employees. I've never asked the background of any of my employees who ever came. If I offered them the job, it was their conduct and their workmanship that either kept them on the job or basically you had to let them go because if they just.
but I'm saying that-
we never said, race, name, age, background. We never did a background check. We did a credit check. Nothing. Matter of fact, people say, "Don't you do that?" I'm like, why? Why do I got to waste my time? If that person can come in and, like you said, has got the qualifications necessary and they do a good job, what do I care?
No, I know, just not
Right.
to sound like a screaming, but I think once a person pays their debt to society,
They're supposed to be.
they should have
It's a clean slate.
It's a clean slate. They should be given that. You
Right.
paid your debt.
Correct.
No, on a similar level,
What do you think? You're more conservative than I am. What do you think?
I agree with 100%. I think if you're if you're a liberty-loving person, you have to. And I think probably, I know conservatives are probably feeling more that way, evidenced maybe by what Trump did, but switching to come around to think the way we think about it. And I think Westchester County, didn't they just do a check the box or whatever
Right,
law
they just did,
it's called,
just did the check the box.
where you can't
the box
ask
or
that
ban
question?
the box.
Right,
Ban the box, right, because not check the box, that's the opposite of what we want to do. And I thought that, I think Testa was against that, but I think that's a great thing too.
Well, on a similar basis, can I just sneak one thing for
Go
a
ahead,
second?
you got
Then
2 minutes.
I know.
Yeah, 1
Yeah, so
minute.
on a similar basis, we're talking about that with respect to job, but an equally disturbing thing also is, some educational institutions are asking that question. There's a movement to do away with that. Where have you ever been incarcerated, and then using
Why would
that
they care?
using that to determine whether they're going to let you in or not. There were some schools that were doing
Well,
that.
to me, the only one that would be if you had like a
Sex crime.
if it were a sexual an activity or whatever, like a sex crime or something, I could see that being a pertinent question. But no, as far as everything else,
Right.
You mean
what the
schools
hell?
as a student or as a
As
job?
a student, no, as a student.
See, I don't think that's anybody's business.
As a
Yeah.
student.
As a student,
I thought
just
they meant as a
admissions
prospective-
process.
Oh,
Correct.
Right.
I don't think that's
I see.
anybody's
He's trying to get your
business.
life straightened out after some wrong
Right, but I don't
choices,
think
and then you
that's
can't get into
anybody's
college. It's
business as
crazy.
a student.
Oh, I thought
now,
you meant
if
as
you
a hire,
are
like a
going to
teacher.
be looking for a job, see, I don't like a blanket. I still will have an objection to a blanket law like that, and I think there are exceptions to the law about if you're working with children.
Schools,
the
maybe.
schools,
Well, yeah, that
they
makes
do
sense.
have exceptions to that where you could still ask that question because it's a very pertinent question.
But a good
if you have
employer-
because science, it's been proven that sex crimes are usually recidivists.
Right.
Correct.
So if you have they have a right to know this.
Right.
or else you open yourself to a hell of a lawsuit.
That's
Right.
right. Sure.
So there are exceptions even to that, you would agree.
I would.
So
Yeah, of
you're
course, if
always
someone-
fighting.
oh, what's that,
You're always fighting an uphill battle with everything you do, aren't you?
I am. I
Yeah.
always am. But my life is about the underdog now. I mean, I was the ultimate underdog, right?
That's
But
right.
in the end, I persevered, and now I'm just trying to make a difference for other people who are less fortunate.
Well, I've always said you didn't let the bastards beat you. That's what I like about it. No, I said this to you privately. I've said it on the air. The fact that there are other people that would have, even though they might have beat the system in the end,
Jeffrey,
they would have
thank
still
you
let
very
the
much.
system beat them.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure
Yes,
as always.
of course, always.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Where do you live?